Today we are discussing issues in leadership. The first issue that relates to our understanding of leadership is democracy versus autocracy. In fact, last time when we were discussing, we did talk about a classification, about a continuum which discusses autocracy on the one side and democracy on the other, and we said that participation lies very close to the democratic leadership style. So, the issue here is whether democracy or participation is the best leadership style or autocracy is the best leadership style. The answer to this question perhaps is that situations are important. So, if you want to become very autocratic leader in all situations, you may not succeed. Similarly, the total democracy at the place of work also may not work, and in between participative management might work because of the reasons that it does take into consideration number of situational variables as well. That is why this is an issue that has been debated by the management thinkers, whether which style of leadership has to be followed. In fact, managers often debate themselves whether they have to be very autocratic at the place of work. In fact, yesterday when some of you did that assignment and someone brought in the case study that the 29-year-old manager seems to be inclination for a lot of say the autocratic attitude. So, you can see that even in the newer generation there are people, those who would like to be very autocratic, but leave aside the personal choices and the styles. If you have to really apply leadership, you have to see that what type of situation is important. Say, in the emergency situation, we have already discussed that sometimes earlier also. In the emergency situation, suppose there is a blackout and we all have participative climate, but at that moment the leadership style has to change because we need answer to that question or performance at that point of time. So, if you really want to have a very democratic attitude at that point of time, then your performance may not be achieved because the main goal at that time is to take care of the blackout, the electricity failure or something of that kind. So, we do need some kind of autocracy at that moment. That is why situations become very important. The other issue that we are going to take up is what is more important? Is production more important or people are more important? Again, most of the managers perhaps will give answer to this question as that production is the most important factor. Well, it is important. If we are talking about an industry or a production system, production is important, yet people cannot be totally ignored. And so, if you want a successful sustainable system, I should say, then we have to have a match between our perception of production and people. Only then a successful manager perhaps can achieve results. There are number of theories which are proposed when we are talking about the production and people phenomenon, and one such theory is Blake and Mouton. Blake and Mouton they have proposed a theory in which is known as the managerial grid theory. Maybe some of you have heard about this theory earlier, managerial grid. And what they have done, they have tried to draw the grid in terms of concern for production on the one hand and concern for people on the other. And when you draw the concern for production, starting from 1 to 9 on the one axis, and concern for people from 1 to 9 on the other axis. And if you start drawing say the relationships, you will find that many people will fall into 1 at concern for production as well as 1 at the concern for people. So, 1 1. Similarly, many people will be there at 9 9, that means maximum concern for people and maximum concern for production, 9 9. So, ideally you can also think and expect that 9 9 is the best type of management. In fact, this combination has been addressed as the team management. In fact, the reflection of participative management comes also there, the team management. Whereas, when people fall into, or the managers concern for people is 1 1, this is characterized as the empowerist management. Empowerist management. Here, manager is takes the job, that okay, I am here, so somehow I have to pull on. So, 1 1, the least concern for people and least concern for production. Okay, 1 1. And of course, 5 5, where person has equal concern for production and equal concern for people in a very judicious, very practical way. That is the middle of the road management, but we can say very practically the manager is able to manage the situation. Of course, other combinations, as you can see, that if you draw a graph, you have so many combinations from 1 to 9 on the one side and 1 to 9 on the other. How many combinations are possible then? Okay. So many combinations and so many styles are possible, but since we are not actually looking at the each sort of a compartment in such a detailed way, we have tried to club them into the major categories. So is it clear to us that the grid, the managerial grid concept is trying to say that concern for production and concern for people are the two major dimensions of a leadership situation, and the best leader is the one who can have a judicious combination of the two to achieve results. So, you can neither ignore your production and task, and you can also not ignore your people. Otherwise, a traditional manager perhaps will think that only my task is important and people are not important, but actually in the long run that does not work, because we have to achieve results through people. And if you really want a sustainable system, then you have to have a very best kind of a approach towards people as well. Now, if so that was to discuss the issue of production versus people, who is more important. So, we find that a combination is important. So, the manager, in order to become successful, must have concern for both. Similarly, we have another model. We are discussing these models. These are the theoretical positions which authors have tried to give us, and in fact, that clarifies in our thinking on how much concern for people and how much concern for production. Similarly, there is yet another model which Hersey and Blanchard they have given, and they have also given there are many things which you may find as common, but then there is a new dimension given to people. So, what they have said, that there is relationship behavior on the one axis, there is relationship behavior on the one axis, okay, and there is a people behavior in terms of the maturity of people. When we are talking about maturity, we are not talking really about any kind of a physical sense. We are talking basically the psychological maturity here. And the one could be very matured, one could be very little matured. Okay. So, if people are matured, okay, then the system of leadership that you have to follow will be different. And so, what they have said that in this relationship, the idea of leadership could be understood in terms of the maturity dimension when coupled with the relationship behavior and the people the production behavior. Okay. So, what we are finding that we can have the 4 different combinations again. Okay. The 4 different combinations they have named as the telling manager, where the subordinates are not really very matured, the telling manager. Okay. When subordinates are slightly more matured, then that is the selling manager. Okay. So, telling manager, there is selling manager. Okay. Then if subordinates are further matured, then the participative manager, then the participative manager. And if they are highly mature like manager only, then the delegating manager. Okay. Then the delegating manager. Okay. So, Hersey and Blanchard, they have talked about this theory, and they are trying to say that again the combinations are important and the situations are important. So, what we are trying to understand here is that when you are a leader and a manager, playing a role of a manager, you have to have concern for people as well as concern for task. So, this theory is trying to explain that if people are immature, then you have to be really telling them all the time, or if they are slightly mature, then selling that your idea. Okay. But in order to have a participative situation, you must have the managers, the subordinates who are matured, and so the manager's style has to be participative. Okay. And that is what we were discussing the other day, the kind of a leadership style that managers must have in order to be participative. In fact, this point we have also discussed earlier when we were discussing some of the conditions for participative management. So, this is one of the conditions for participative management, that the subordinates should be matured enough to accept participative management as a strategy of leadership. Okay. So, if we just decide that I will have participative management, and we have not analyzed the characteristics of the group, perhaps we may not succeed as much as expected. Okay. So, this brings us to the other issues. For example, when we look at situation as a major variable in our understanding of leadership style, there are yet another group of theories. For example, Fiedler, one researcher, he has proposed a theory where he is trying to say that it is the characteristics of the subordinates, characteristic of the job situation. Okay. So, and how leader and the subordinates, they match with each other. So, leadership match theory. Okay. So, the situation and the leadership style, including the leader's own style, how do they match, and then eventually the leadership style will depend on that. Okay, so far we have discussed whether democracy is important or participation, the autocracy is important. That was the first issue. The second issue we are trying to debate was whether concern for people is more important or concern for task is more important. The third issue we are taking up, could there be any substitute for leadership? Is it possible that we do without leadership at the place of work? Well, this is a very new concept, and normally people believe that we need a leader, but now the thinking has changed. From autocracy we are now coming to participation, and we are accepting the fact that people can really be involved in decision making, and we are going a step ahead. We are trying to say that the substitute for leadership could be a work climate where you have participation, you have commitment of employees. So, if you have the commitment of employees, if people are matured enough, then perhaps there is a very little requirement for leadership. Okay. So, here is a manager who is head of a department or institutions, okay, but his group is so matured, people are so committed, so dutiful, they have such high work values that you just give them whatever task, and you will find that the work is done. So, this phenomenon many a times many authors have considered as the substitute for leadership. So, actually we can say that it is not the total substitute, but it is creating a work climate where there is a less requirement of leaders' role as it used to be there in the past. Okay. So, but the condition for that is that our subordinates or our employees must be committed, and therefore, commitment becomes a very important concept in this regard. In the recent years, if you would recollect, when we were doing the introduction to the subject, we were trying to talk about that there is a strategic human resource management concept coming up, where commitment is very important. So, we have to train people to get committed, we have to select people those who are committed, and we have to create conditions where people are committed. So, if we can do that, then perhaps we can achieve results in no time. Then you do not have to bother that my work is done or my work is not done, because it will be done. You can take it as a guarantee that your work will be done, and you do not need any kind of a leave alone the close supervision. In fact, no supervision at all. You know that once I have given, and that is always true. Some people are so responsible that you just give them some work and you will find that the work is done, and you are rest assured that okay, the work will be done. So, these concepts have been discussed by various authors as substitutes for leadership. So, we should not take it like that there is a total substitute, but very close to that we can say that the requirement for leadership role may reduce at the place of work. This was the third issue that has come up in the, I should say, in the frontiers of leadership research. Okay. So, in the recent years we have been talking about this, and we have been debating on these issues. Yet another issue that has been bothering people some of you might feel amused that is that an issue. That is an issue because now there are many female managers entering all types of organizations, okay. And this is also a recent phenomenon, and that is why the frontiers, in the leadership style. Earlier women were either not taking up career, or if they were taking up career, they just took up some special types of jobs where they do not have to really be very responsible on the very responsible role and positions. Also earlier we can say, which of course might happen in some organizations even today, that women do not get promoted to very high positions because of so many reasons. But things are changing, and we find that there are many women managers now. So, the issue for us here is whether women managers are better managers, the female managers or the male managers. Normally people believe that okay, females perhaps are not good managers, and lot of researches are going on in this field, but we find that women are equally good managers, and some of the researchers have also suggested that in some situations they may be even better. But the things are not really conclusive. So, we cannot say that they are necessarily better, but we can certainly say that the difference is not that distinct, and the attitude that has remained that female managers are not very effective, that is not very true. Perhaps this analysis might go to the other factors. If you once you are a manager, typically people thought that in order to become a manager you have to be very aggressive, because we were looking at autocracy as the style of managing, okay. And often you will find women are not that aggressive as their other the counterpart. But what we find that as the leadership styles are also changing, our understanding of the concept is changing, and not only that, as the social change is taking place, people get socialized, that now there is no difference whether a manager is male or female. I am sure you do not find any difference when a female is teaching or a male is teaching. I am sure you do not find any difference, because now from your kindergarten perhaps you have been used to that. So, in terms of a teacher, I am sure the attitude is not that like that the male teacher only has to be there, nothing like that. At least that is what I think. So, this issue of leadership is becoming very important in the literature of leadership now, and in fact lots have been written about it, even though we are not saying that there is anything conclusive. Only what we are saying that given an opportunity, females prove to be equally good managers, okay. And therefore, while we are recruiting, while there is any kind of a power position, gender should not be considered as an important factor. Only the individual characters should be taken into account, okay. And we are yet to see, because situation again is important. Sometimes female with small children, because they have the dual responsibility and the great responsibility of bringing up their small children. Sometimes people might start believing that they are not good workers, but it may be just a very situational phenomenon for them, okay. So, this issue is open, and this is being debated and lot of research is being done on this issue of leadership, as we have already discussed, that because now female managers are quite a few in organizations. Therefore, the situational leadership issue that I started discussing earlier, that becomes very relevant to our understanding of the issues related to leadership styles. Now, yet another issue that is important is the traits that people have, the personality traits. Some of the studies and some of the assignments that we have been doing these days also are about the personality traits of a manager. And in situations that becomes very important. If your manager is highly intuitive or he has very high maturity, he will have a different, or he is very highly creative, he will have different kind of a strategy for managing people. So, in situation we have the task characteristics, the characteristics of the manager and the characteristics of the organization. These three combined will create the situational demand for us. Okay. And so, situation becomes very important when we are talking about leadership phenomenon. Now, we next move on to the other propositions given by many other authors. Let us now look at the superior subordinate interaction in the issues in leadership, and this is presented by Rensis Likert. He first talked about these in his book named New Patterns of Management, and he proposed that these systems of superior subordinate interaction result into the kind of leadership that you might expect. Now, here there is some sort of overlap with the continuum that we had discussed earlier. System 1 is exploitative authoritative, the very old style of leadership where authoritative style was very prevalent, and in fact that is there in many situations in many organizations even today, where the relationship, you can say, is like a servant master relationship. That kind of a relationship is there. Then comes the benevolent autocrat, we can say, benevolent relationship, where it is a softer one. It is not a master and servant relationship, but a softer one, yet it is autocratic. It is autocratic. In consultative, we find that they become much more closer, and then the third system begins as a consultative superior subordinate interaction, and you can see that the participative system is the one that has maximum superior subordinate interaction. In fact, Rensis Likert used the word participative leadership for the first time. Okay, after that we have been discussing, and this has become a subject in its own right, but that was the first time he made use of this terminology. Okay. So, again we can see that there is some kind of a continuum here emerging when we are coming from the exploitative authoritative relationship to the participative type of leadership. And in today's time, with all the social change taking place and all the globalization coming up for us, we are all trying to implement participative leadership styles in our organizations, okay, because of many reasons, as what we have discussed also earlier, that people also have become very professional, there is a social change, they are matured, both managers and the subordinates, both, because here we will say that the total system has to like all participants must be matured enough, okay. So, because if the subordinate is very matured and the manager is not, then you can see again we will have difficulty, okay. So, the leadership style is also determined by some of these factors. Therefore, in these interactions that we have, these last this 1, 2, 3, 4, these have been put in the next table. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and here we are trying to understand a little more about these 4 systems. That means some of the characteristics we have picked up, and the confidence and trust, for example. In system 1 there is no confidence and trust, whereas in system 4, which is participative, there is full confidence and trust. Subordinates feeling of freedom. In the first one, they do not feel free at all, whereas in the fourth one, there is a complete freedom. Here we have tried to draw that continuum. So, in second and third you can see that the its sort of a reflection increases, okay. That is why we have not written that in words, but you can just understand that from first to fourth, that means second and third are in between that. That is why we have not written that in words. Then the involvement of subordinates. Involvement of subordinates in the system 1, seldom we get this idea, and in the system 4 we always get these ideas. So, what we are discussing? We are discussing the 4 systems of subordinate superior subordinate interaction, okay, and we have seen the 4 systems have different characteristics, okay. They, even though they flow from one to the other, and you can see that some of the issues that we are trying to discuss here are some of these characteristics. Okay. Now, having discussed that there are number of characteristics which relate to different situational variables, now we move on to some other leadership styles, which are again the newer additions to the literature in leadership styles. Let us now look at the charismatic leadership. All of you understand what is the meaning of charisma? Perhaps we all define the term charisma in our own way. The word charisma started from Weber's writings, okay, and in today's context we refer to that as some kind of a impact, the emotional impact that the leader might be able to make on the people, and the charismatic manager has some personal power. We will just come to the power and authority in short while from now. Charismatic leader has some personal power, and some literature says that the charismatic leaders are emotionally involved, they are very they care for their subordinates, they are intelligent, they are very good as their with the social skills. Okay. They are very patient, and above all they are very confident. They are extremely confident people, the charismatic managers. Okay. And then combining all these characteristics make them into a charismatic manager, or some kind of a personal power they have. Okay. And as a result of that, they become important directing forces in an organization. Now, if you ask the question whether in this organization we have the charismatic people as important in the formal way, perhaps in your company charter you do not have any room to say that okay, here is the role of a charismatic manager or anything of that kind. Okay. But the charismatic manager, because that is his personal power, he may be even placed in a lower level in the hierarchy, but he may command so much of a power that he becomes a charismatic leader. Okay. Even though this phenomenon you may find more prevalent, in the religious leadership and that kind of a situation, but we cannot deny this fact that even in a formal situation you have charismatic leaders. Okay. And here we are talking about the management, so we are basically talking about managing an organization in a very formal way. So, there are people with charismatic power also at the place of work, and that is how sometimes you address some managers by saying, oh, he is a great manager and wherever he is going to make an impact. Perhaps there is a possibility that that manager is a charismatic manager. So, with his personal power, people are valuing him so much that he becomes a very, very effective leader. There are other types of leadership styles also, and so in the recent years we have been talking about the other styles of leadership as well. There are transformational leaders, there are ethical leaders. Like charismatic leader, we also have the ethical leaders, transformational leaders in our organizations. And our understanding of the whole leadership style will not be complete unless we have also discussed what is the meaning of a transformational leader and who is an ethical leader. In our next lecture, we are going to discuss the transformational leaders, the ethical leaders, and some of these new frontiers in the knowledge of leadership phenomenon. So, in the recent years we have been discussing the emergence of different types of leaders in organizations. A lot of research has been done and a lot of books have been written. So, we will be discussing these characteristics and these leadership styles in our next discussion. So, we will close for today and we will meet next time to discuss some of these new frontiers.